All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is day 8 quarantined here in my studio slash office. And as you can see, we've had our first casualty of filming. I have 2 of these studio lights. I've been arranging them to obviously try to light up the backdrop a little bit here and make it a little bit better because we are in the basement. I think it's been working pretty well, but the other day I tripped over the cord, knocked the entire light over, and now the whole bulb and everything broke. So that's the end of that. My plan for today was to take you outside. Figure it's day 8, cabin fever, let's go outside. We'll go for a ride in either the Volt or the Bolt or something like that. But it's raining, it's foggy, it's just not really that, it's a dreary day outside. So instead I said, well, maybe I'll make a video like I was gonna do the other day about all the cars that I've owned over my life. And as I got into the second car that I owned, I noticed that I have a tremendous amount of photos and all sorts of pictures, and actually a couple of stories too that I can tell about that car. So today we're focused on that. It's my 1973 Ford Galaxie 500. It was a 2-door coupe. It had a 351 Windsor engine in it, and I loved it. It was awesome. Here it is. Just looking at these pictures, this reminds me of all the good times I had with this car. You know, when I bought this car, I was probably 20 or 21 years old. I had the Mercury Cougar for a couple of years, and my plan was, because all my friends and people in the family, cousins and all, had classic type cars, we used to go to cruise nights. You know, there's an STS at a Burger King here in Bayonne. It's not there anymore, but they used to have cruise nights every either Wednesday or Thursday night, and you'd get like 25, 30 cars down there, and it was a lot of fun. Like, I really liked that environment. So I wanted to have a car that I could kind of participate in that environment. And I actually found this at that cruise night. A local guy in town was selling it for 4,500 bucks. And it looked just like it looked in the pictures. I really didn't do anything to this car except some stuff under the hood. And it was something I really wanted. You know, it sounded great, it looked great. It was that copper orange color that it really gleamed in the light. You know, really just an awesome car. And he was selling, like I said, for 4,500 bucks. My parents were out of town. I wanted to buy this car. I had the money to buy the car. However, I still lived at home. So my parents were very involved in every decision you made, especially spending that kind of money on a car. So they were out of town, and I'm talking to the guy that's selling it, and he's giving me all sorts of sales pressure about how other people are looking at it, and it's not gonna last forever, and it's gonna be gone. And I'm on the phone with my parents. My parents are telling me to wait. I really want to do it. So long story short, I end up doing it. My parents are like, if you want it, do it. So I buy the car. I get the car home into the driveway here. Now picture this, it's city atmosphere in Bayonne, New Jersey. Houses are packed in pretty tight. We have a driveway that's about a car width, and it's 4 lengths long. So you can put about 3 or 4 cars in it. So I had the car backed in right in the first spot by the street, and my cousins come over and we're looking at it, we're checking everything out, you know, having an awesome time just admiring the car. My parents are on their way home. They're gonna be home in a little bit. I'll get to show them, I'm all excited. I go to start the car won't start. No crank, nothing. Couple little indicator lights. So I'm like, well, this is weird. So trying again, trying everything. Will not start. Will not turn over at all. So I'm like, well, this is crazy. It wasn't even cranking, let alone turn over. So I called the guy I bought the car from. He answers the phone. I never had a problem with it. You know, kind of gave me that answer, kind of, in a sense, brushed me off, like, you bought it, it's on you, that sort of thing. So I go back outside. I'm going crazy because I know my parents are coming home soon. I spent money on a car, and now the car doesn't start. So my cousins are there. We push it all the way to the back of the driveway, and I patiently wait for my parents to come home. My parents end up coming home. They pull in the driveway. They see the car. My father's kind of smiling. He's looking at it. I remember this like it was yesterday because I was paranoid. They're unpacking their stuff out of the car to bring it all in the house. Now, fortunate for me, my younger sister, decided to dye her hair while they were away. Some sort of purplish type color. So where I thought my parents were gonna come to me and be like, you know, you've spent this money on a car, the car won't start, what's the matter with you? And I was gonna get kind of yelled at for it. I, outside waiting for them to come back out to look at the car, hear them yelling at my sister for dyeing her hair purple. Why did you do that? What's wrong with you? You know, just typical parent type stuff, you know, yelling at their kids for doing things, you know, they decided to do on their own. The benefit to me was that when my parents came back out, my father came out, it was almost like a sigh of relief that he was no longer in there. He was outside. And I explained to him about the car and that it won't start and I don't know what's up. I don't remember what day this was. It was probably a Sunday. And then Monday, you know, at home, I called our mechanic that was right down the street. He took a walk up. He started the car with a screwdriver, which blew my mind that you can just touch a screwdriver to the solenoid and into a piece of metal and crank the car over. And he brought it down to his shop. I get a call later in the day to come down to the shop. He had pulled out books and manuals. They were following wiring diagrams, everything they can do to try to figure out what was up, with this car. And if you look in this photo of the interior, you'll notice that there's a cigarette lighter along the bottom of the dashboard. And that cigarette lighter was wired to a kill switch in a sense somehow. And if the cigarette lighter was pulled out, the car wouldn't start. So thinking back and retracing my steps, when I was in the car with my cousins the day before, we're going through the whole car. I remember going to the lighter to see if it worked. And when I went to push the lighter in, it was already in position. So I was like, well, that was weird. So I pulled it out. I pushed it in all the way. It never popped out. So like the heating element never got hot. And then I ended up taking it and putting it in like that neutral position where it's not all the way in and it's not all the way out, where it should be. Because I did that, that's why the car wouldn't start. It was pretty cool to be able to figure that out nice and early in my ownership of this vehicle. I ended up calling the guy I bought it from back and told him he had no clue. So he drove this car, probably never touched a lighter because it must have been something that a previous owner had done because he had no clue. But at that point, I felt like I was James Bond and stuff. I'd park the car, I'd take the cigarette lighter with me. You couldn't start the car. Although if you broke in, popped the hood, you can just start it with a screwdriver. Now, like I said, when I bought this car, I really didn't do much to it. The photos you're looking at are exactly the way it looked when I got it. All I did was I dressed up under the hood a little bit. Chrome valve covers, a chrome air cleaner, the loom that you put all the hoses through, just to kind of dress it up for car shows, because that's again what we were doing. We were going to cruise nights and car shows and things like that with our vehicles back then. I also went on eBay and I found original ads for a Galaxie. I had the original book, I had the original owner's manual, so I was able to kind of put a whole package together at a car show, which I thought was pretty cool. I really enjoyed doing it. And it was fun spending time with friends and family and stuff at these different shows. One cool thing about this vehicle as well is I learned more about working on vehicles. And that's the last thing I want to kind of touch on today in this video. This car was known for having a rear main seal that would always have an issue. And it was called a rope seal. And it was a two-piece seal, if I remember correctly, kind of like a half a circle and a half a circle. And one part would be on your oil pan or the crankcase or something. I don't remember. One part would be basically from the bottom and from the top, the seal was supposed to meet in the middle, but they always leaked. So as I drove this car around, it would lose oil. I decided that I would take the car apart and do it myself. And lucky for me, at the time I was working at Wigner Chevrolet, which was now where I currently work at Schumacher, the same store, our sales manager at the time, a guy named Ernie, was super into cars, constantly worked on things. He had an engine hoist, and he told me it was a job that if I'm semi-mechanically inclined, I could probably handle, no problem. And I decided to take on the challenge. And here's some photos from that. I was at my grandmother's house in her garage, and we basically pulled this car apart, took the engine out, put all new bearings in, all new seal, put everything back together. And just like I mentioned in my first car video with the Cougar, I got to feel that feeling again, where you put everything back together, you crank that engine over and it started up perfectly, like you never took it apart. So I was really fortunate to have, one, a place where I could work on in the garage of my grandmother's house, and two, people that would help me and kind of guide me through, because I would take pictures of the different bearings and the different things, bring it to work, show them. They would give me pointers and tips and tell me that things look good and they don't look good. And it was just really, it was a cool experience. I kept it, I would say, for about 10 years. The last number of years it would just sit. So I decided, you know what, it's just money in the garage. So I sold it. I actually sold it for $6,500. So about $2,000 more than what I bought it for 10 years prior. And again, I didn't invest all that much money into the car. It was just something to cruise around with, enjoy, have fun. And, it's a great looking car. I wish I had video clips of the audio, because the sound, this had Flowmaster exhaust. It was 1973, so there were no catalytic converters. So it was a custom dual exhaust from front to back with two Flowmaster mufflers that the guy had put on, and it sounded amazing. Now, that being said, the car was all show, all sound, and it was no go. These 351 Windsor engines were rated at 150 horsepower and 250 foot-pounds of torque. The car weighed probably just over 4,000 pounds, if I had to guess. And I think, if I remember correctly, it actually had a 3-speed transmission. So it was slow. I actually looked up the stat just before because I was curious, and the estimated 0 to 60 time on this car was 13.4 seconds. Now, just to give you a frame of reference on that, a brand new 2019 Chevrolet Cruze with a 1.4 liter 4-cylinder turbo can do 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds, 7.7. Now it weighs 1,000 pounds less. It's got about the same horsepower and the same torque. So it's pretty funny to see how cars changed over a 30-year period of time from being these, just big raw pieces of metal and iron to now just a tremendous amount of technology, computers and smarts that get you both more power and better fuel economy. Because this thing would get like, 7 miles to the gallon if I was lucky, and I had to put premium in it. But it was an awesome car nonetheless. I loved having it. And I would like to have a classic again. I got my eye on one. It's goofy looking, but it's just goofy looking that I think if I got one day, you can get them pretty inexpensive. You can put a modern twist to it. And I think it'd be pretty cool to have. I'm gonna put a picture of that at the end of this video. But thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this upload. And tomorrow I will see you on day 9. Hopefully the weather's good and we can venture outside and take a little ride in one of the cars. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.